My name is Esther. I'm 32 years old. And I need to tell you about the day my father closed his door in my face, and the day I bought the house right next to his. It was a Thursday in September. One of those days where the air feels heavy, like the sky itself is holding its breath. I was standing outside my apartment building with 3 black trash bags full of my belongings, watching the landlord change the locks on my door. "I'm sorry, Esther," he said, not looking at me. His hands fumbled with the new lock, the metal clicking into place with a sound that felt so final. "But you're 2 months behind. I gave you as much time as I could." 2 months. 60 days. 8 weeks. It had happened so fast it felt like whiplash. I'd lost my job in July, downsizing they called it, like that made it hurt less. Spent August applying to everything I could find. Administrative assistant. Receptionist. Data entry. Barista. Anything. And now it was September, the leaves just starting to turn gold, and I had nowhere to live. I sat on the curb with those 3 bags, everything I owned reduced to garbage bags, and tried to figure out what to do. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. $47.23. That was it. No job. No savings. No apartment. No plan. I thought about my friends. But most of them were struggling too. Maya was living with 2 roommates in a tiny 2-bedroom. Jacob had just had a baby. Everyone was barely making it themselves. How could I ask them to take on my problems? Then I thought about my father. He lived 30 minutes away in a nice 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. My mother had passed away 5 years ago from cancer, and he'd been living there alone ever since. 3 bedrooms. Just him. Surely, he'd help me. Surely, blood meant something. Surely, this was what family was for. I called him with shaking hands. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. I almost hung up. Then he answered. "Hello? Dad? It's Esther. I know who it is." His voice was already flat. Already annoyed. "What do you want?" Not "how are you," or "it's good to hear from you." Just "what do you want?" I swallowed hard. "Dad, I lost my apartment. The landlord just locked me out. I don't have anywhere to go, and I was wondering if what? If you could come stay with me? Just for a little while. Until I get back on my feet. A few weeks, maybe a month at most." He laughed. Actually laughed. A short, bitter sound that made my stomach drop like I was falling. "Esther, you're 32 years old. 32. And you're calling me because you can't manage your own life? What have you been doing all these years? Where's all that independence you were so proud of?" "Dad, I lost my job." "It's not. It's always something with you, isn't it?" His voice was getting louder now. Harder. "Always some excuse. Always some crisis. You know what your problem is? You never learned to be responsible. You never learned to plan ahead. You never learned to save money or think about consequences." Each word hit me like a punch. I sat there on that curb, cars driving past, people walking by living their normal lives, while mine fell apart in real time. "So no," he continued, his voice cold and final. "No, you can't stay with me. You made your bed, Esther. Now lie in it. Maybe this will teach you something that I obviously failed to teach you growing up." "Dad, please," my voice cracked. I hated how desperate I sounded. How small. I said no. "Figure it out yourself. That's what adults do. That's what responsible people do. Stop expecting other people to fix your problems." "But you're my father. And you're 32. Act like it." And then he hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear. I sat there holding the phone, staring at the screen, watching it fade to black. Around me, life continued. A woman walked past with a dog. A teenager rode by on a skateboard. The sun started setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple that were almost too beautiful for how ugly I felt inside. And I felt something inside me break. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Not like in movies where people scream or throw things. But quietly, like a crack forming in glass. Like something fundamental shifting and settling into a new, damaged shape. My own father. The man who was supposed to protect me. The man who used to carry me on his shoulders when I was little and call me his princess. The man who once promised he'd always be there for me, no matter what. He just left me on the street with 3 trash bags and nowhere to go. Let me tell you what it feels like to be rejected by your own father when you're at your absolute lowest point. It doesn't feel like anger. Not at first. It feels like shame. Deep, burning shame that starts in your chest and spreads through your whole body like poison. Shame that tells you that somehow, you deserved this. That somehow, you're not worthy of love or help or basic human decency. That you're a burden too heavy for even your own blood to carry. It feels like looking in a mirror and seeing someone worthless staring back. I sat on that curb for almost an hour. People walked past. Some looked at me with pity. Others looked away quickly, like poverty and desperation might be contagious. A few kids pointed and whispered. Finally, when the streetlights started coming on, I called my best friend Maya. She answered on the 3rd ring. Esther? What's up? You sound weird. I got evicted. The words came out flat. Empty. Can I stay with you for a few days? Just until I figure something out. There was a pause. A long one. And in that pause, I prepared myself for another rejection. Braced for it. Expected it. Oh my God, Esther. Yes. Of course. Are you okay? Where are you? Do you need me to pick you up right now? I cried then. Right there on the curb, phone pressed to my ear, tears streaming down my face. Because that's what kindness does when you're broken. It reminds you just how badly you needed it. It reminds you what love is supposed to look like. Maya picked me up 20 minutes later in her beat-up Honda Civic. She helped me load my trash bags into the trunk and back seat. She didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She just said, "It's going to be okay. We'll figure this out together." Together. What a beautiful word. Her apartment was small. A studio barely big enough for one person, let alone 2. But she gave me her couch, her extra blanket, her Wi-Fi password, and her compassion. Stay as long as you need, she said, hugging me tight. Seriously. Don't even worry about it. That night, lying on her couch in the darkness, I thought about my father. About his words. About his rejection. And I made a decision. I would never ask him for anything again. Never beg. Never hope he'd change. Never wait for him to see my worth. From this moment on, I would rebuild my life myself. With or without his approval. With or without his love. I would show him, and more importantly show myself, that I didn't need him to survive. I stayed on Maya's couch for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sleeping on cushions too short for my body, waking up with neck pain and back pain and the constant guilt of taking up space in someone else's home. 3 weeks of folding my blanket neatly every morning and trying to make myself invisible. 3 weeks of leaving early and coming back late, trying to be the least burdensome burden possible. During the day, I'd go to the library and apply for jobs. Dozens of them. Hundreds, eventually. I'd sit at those public computers for hours, filling out applications, writing cover letters, sending out resumes into the void and praying something would stick. Every rejection email felt like confirmation of what my father had said. That I wasn't good enough. That I was a failure. That I deserved to be on that street corner with my trash bags. But I kept applying. Because what else could I do? Give up? Prove him right? No. I refused to give him that satisfaction. After 2 weeks, I finally got a call back. A grocery store was hiring for part-time cashier work. Minimum wage. 20 hours a week. It wasn't much. It wasn't even close to enough. But it was something. I took the job immediately. I started the next day. My first shift was 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. I woke up at 4:30, got ready quietly so I wouldn't wake Maya, and took 2 buses to get there. The work was mind-numbing. Scanning items. Making change. Smiling at customers even when they were rude. Standing in one place for 8 hours until my feet throbbed. But it was honest work. And it was mine. Nobody could take it from me. After 2 weeks of that schedule, I realized one part-time job wasn't going to cut it. I couldn't even afford my share of groceries, let alone save money for a deposit on a new apartment. So I got a second job. Evenings at a call center, selling insurance to people who didn't want it. 5 nights a week, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. I'd finish my grocery store shift, take the bus across town, and spend 6 hours in a cubicle making cold calls. Hi, my name is Esther, and I'm calling to tell you about an exciting opportunity to save money on your auto insurance. 99 out of 100 people would hang up on me. Some would curse at me. Some would tell me I was a scammer. Some would just laugh and disconnect. But that one person out of 100 would listen, would buy a policy, would give me a small commission that added to my paycheck. I was working 70 hours a week, waking up at 4:30 a.m., getting home at 11 p.m., sleeping 6 hours, repeating. I was exhausted all the time. My body ached. My eyes burned. I lived on cheap ramen and whatever expired food the grocery store let employees take home. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done anything fun or relaxing or just for myself. But I was surviving. And that mattered. Every paycheck, I deposited everything except the bare minimum for bus fare and food. I watched my bank account slowly grow. $100, $200, $500. Each number felt like a small victory. Like proof that I was climbing out of the hole my father had left me in. During this time, my father texted me occasionally. Always casual. Always surface level. Never acknowledging what had happened. How are you doing? Haven't heard from you in a while. Your brother is visiting this weekend. Want to come by? I never responded. Not once. I'd read the messages, feel that familiar anger and hurt rise up in my chest, and then delete them. Because what was I supposed to say? That I was sleeping on a friend's couch? That I was working 2 minimum wage jobs just to survive? That I cried myself to sleep some nights, wondering why I wasn't worth helping? No. He didn't deserve to know those things. He'd lost the right to my vulnerability the day he hung up on me. One night, about 2 months into this routine, Maya sat down next to me on the couch. I'd just gotten home from the call center. It was almost midnight. I was eating a bowl of instant noodles and staring at the wall. Esther, she said gently. Are you okay? And I mean really okay, not just I'm surviving okay. I looked at her. At this friend who'd opened her home to me when my own father wouldn't. Who'd shared her space and her food and never once made me feel like a burden. I don't know, I admitted. I feel like I'm drowning. Like I'm working as hard as I can, but I'm barely staying afloat. And the worst part is, part of me is starting to believe my dad was right. That I really am irresponsible. That I really can't manage my life. Maya grabbed my hand. Listen to me. Your father was wrong. So completely wrong. You didn't lose your apartment because you're irresponsible. You lost it because you lost your job in a bad economy. That's not a character flaw. That's life. And look at you, you're working 2 jobs. You're saving money. You're fighting. That's not irresponsibility. That's strength. I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. But my father's voice was louder in my head than hers. Let me take you back. To help you understand why his rejection cut so deep. When I was 7 years old, my father was my hero. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with rough, calloused hands that could fix anything. A leaky faucet. A broken bike. A scraped knee. He'd come home from work at the factory smelling like oil and metal and sweat, and I'd run to him, and he'd scoop me up and spin me around until I was dizzy with laughter. There's my girl, he'd say, his voice warm and proud. How was your day, princess? Princess. That's what he called me. Like I was someone precious. Someone worth protecting. Someone special. I remember one time when I was maybe 8 or 9, I fell off my bike. I was trying to ride without training wheels for the first time, and I lost my balance and crashed hard. My knee was scraped up badly, blood running down my leg, gravel embedded in the skin. I was crying so hard I couldn't breathe. My father heard me from inside the house and came running out. I can still see him, running in his slippers, eyes wide with concern. He picked me up like I weighed nothing and carried me inside. He sat me on the bathroom counter and cleaned my wound so gently, his big rough hands so careful and tender. He pulled out the gravel piece by piece, then put a bandage on it, one with little stars. You're tough, Esther, he said, looking right in my eyes. Tougher than you know. And whenever you fall, I'll be here to pick you up. Always. That's a promise. That's what dads do. I believed him. For years, I believed him. That promise became the foundation of how I understood love and family. Dads pick you up when you fall. Dads are there when you need them. That's what they do. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Or maybe it was always there, hidden beneath the surface, and I was just too young to see it. My father was a man who valued control, order, traditional ways of doing things. He had very specific ideas about how life should work, and he expected everyone around him to follow those ideas without question. When I was 16, I told him I wanted to study art in college. I was good at drawing. Really good. My art teacher said I had real talent, that I could have a future in graphic design or illustration. It made me happy in a way nothing else did. I'd lose myself for hours with a pencil and paper, creating worlds and characters and stories. I showed my father my portfolio one evening at dinner. I'd spent weeks putting it together, choosing my best pieces. I was so excited to share it with him, to show him this thing I loved. He flipped through it slowly. His face was blank, unreadable. When he finished, he closed the folder and pushed it back across the table. Art, he said. That's not a career, Esther. That's a hobby. You need to study something practical. Business, nursing, teaching. Something that will actually pay the bills and provide stability. But Dad, I'm really good at. I don't care if you're good at it, he interrupted. The world doesn't care about your feelings or your passions. It cares about results. Money. Security. You want to end up broke and struggling? Because that's where art leads. I'm not paying for you to waste 4 years on a useless degree. It's not useless. This conversation is over, he said, his voice hard and final. You'll study business or you'll pay for college yourself. Your choice. I didn't study art. I studied business, like he wanted. I hated every single class. Hated the textbooks, the lectures, the case studies. But I did it because I wanted him to be proud of me. Because I thought if I followed his rules, he'd love me the way he used to. When I was 23, I moved out for the first time. I'd graduated college, gotten a job as an administrative assistant, and saved up enough for a security deposit. I found a small studio apartment across town. It was tiny, just a main room with a kitchen nook and a bathroom, but it was mine. My own space. My own life. Independence. I was so excited. This felt like the beginning of real adulthood. Real freedom. My father came to help me move. He'd offered, which surprised me. We loaded his truck with my stuff, my futon, my small TV, my boxes of books and clothes. The drive to the apartment was mostly silent. When we got there and started unloading, he looked around the building with a critical eye. At the peeling paint. The small parking lot. The chain link fence. When we got everything inside and I was arranging furniture, he stood in the doorway with his arms crossed. This is what you left home for, he said. This tiny place in this neighborhood? You could have stayed home, saved money, actually built up a real down payment for something nice. Dad, I wanted my own space, I said, trying to keep my voice light. My own freedom. Independence. Freedom, he repeated, like the word tasted bad in his mouth. Freedom doesn't pay rent, Esther. Freedom doesn't put food on the table. You'll learn that soon enough. Everyone does. He left 20 minutes later. Didn't even stay to see the place fully set up. Just walked out and drove away, leaving me standing in my new apartment feeling like I'd done something wrong. That was his way. Whenever I did something he didn't approve of, he'd punish me with coldness. With distance. With his disappointment hanging in the air like smoke. And for years, I kept trying to win him back. Kept trying to prove I was making the right choices. Kept trying to be the daughter he wanted. But I never could be. Because the daughter he wanted didn't exist. She was obedient without question. Dependent without shame. Grateful for his control. Someone who needed him for everything. And I was trying so hard to be independent. To prove I could make it on my own. To show him I was capable. The cruel irony is that the moment I actually needed him, when I'd lost everything and had nowhere else to turn, he used that independence against me. You wanted to be independent. Well, here's your independence. Figure it out yourself. After 3 weeks on Maya's couch, I found a room to rent. It was in a house shared by 3 other people, 2 grad students and a guy who worked night shifts at a warehouse. The house was old and drafty, with questionable plumbing and a kitchen that was always dirty no matter how much I cleaned it. My room was barely bigger than a closet. Literally. I could touch both walls with my arms spread. There was a twin bed, a small dresser, and a window that looked out at a brick wall. No closet. No personal bathroom. Just that tiny space. But it was $400 a month. Cheap enough that I could afford it with my 2 jobs. And it was mine, or at least rented mine. A door I could close. A space that wasn't someone else's couch. I moved in with my 3 trash bags and felt like I'd won a small victory. It wasn't much. But it was a step up. A step forward. Proof that I was climbing. I kept both jobs. Grocery store in the mornings. Call center at night. 70 hours a week. 6 days a week. My body ran on caffeine and adrenaline and the stubborn refusal to give up. My roommates barely saw me. I'd wake up before they did, come home after they'd gone to bed. We were like ghosts passing in the hallway. On my 1 day off each week, Sundays, I'd sleep until noon, then spend the afternoon at the laundromat, watching my clothes spin in circles and thinking about my life. This wasn't what I'd imagined for myself at 32. Working minimum wage jobs. Living in a room the size of a closet. Eating ramen for dinner most nights because it was all I could afford. But it was honest. It was mine. And nobody could take it from me. Every 2 weeks when I got paid, I'd deposit most of my money into savings. I had a goal now. A clear target. I needed first month's rent, last month's rent, and a security deposit for a real apartment. That was roughly $3,000. At my current savings rate, it would take me about 6 months. 6 months of this grind. 6 months of exhaustion. 6 months of proving to myself that I could do this. I could do this. Around this time, about 4 months into my 2-job routine, my father texted me again. I'm having a barbecue this weekend. Your brother and sister will be there with their families. You should come. I stared at that message for a long time. My brother, Marcus, and my sister, Lisa. His favorite children. The golden ones. The ones who'd done everything right. Marcus was an accountant, married with 2 kids, living in a nice house in the suburbs. Lisa was a teacher, married to a dentist, with 1 kid and another on the way. They'd both followed the script. They'd made my father proud. And they got the rewards for it. His time. His attention. His help. When Marcus bought his house, my father helped with the down payment. When Lisa's car broke down, he bought her a new one. When they needed anything, babysitting, home repairs, money, he was there. But me? I'd tried to go my own way. And when I'd fallen, he'd let me hit the ground. I typed out a response, I can't. I'm working. Then I deleted it. I typed, no thanks. Deleted that too. I typed, I don't think that's a good idea. Deleted it. Finally, I just wrote, I can't make it. He responded immediately, you're being childish. Family is family. You can't avoid me forever. I almost laughed. Childish? I was childish for not wanting to smile and pretend everything was fine? For not wanting to sit at his table and act like he hadn't abandoned me when I needed him most? I turned off my phone and went to work. The months crawled by. Fall turned to winter. Winter turned to spring. I kept working. Kept saving. Kept pushing forward 1 day at a time. There were moments when I almost broke. Nights when I'd lie in my tiny room, staring at the ceiling, and wonder what I was doing. Wonder if this was all my life would ever be. Wonder if my father was right, if I really was just irresponsible and this was the life I deserved. But then I'd check my savings account. Watch that number grow. $1,000. $2,000. $3,500. Each milestone felt like a middle finger to every doubt, every criticism, every person who'd underestimated me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building something. Slowly. Painfully. But building nonetheless. 1 year and 2 months after losing my apartment, I had enough saved for a real place. I found a small one-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. It was nothing fancy, old carpet, outdated kitchen, a bathroom with questionable tile, but it had a bedroom with a door and windows that actually opened and heat that worked. The day I signed the lease, I sat in my empty apartment and cried. Not sad tears. Not frustrated tears. But relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. I had a home. A real home. No roommates. No couch. No tiny closet room. Just mine. I furnished it slowly, piece by piece. A bed frame from a thrift store. A couch someone was giving away on Facebook. A kitchen table I found on the curb and sanded down and painted myself. Plants from the dollar store. Curtains I sewed by hand. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. Every single piece of it. And once I had stable housing, something shifted in me. The constant panic that had been my companion for over a year started to ease. I could breathe a little deeper. Sleep a little better. I quit the call center job. Kept the grocery store one but asked for full-time hours. They made me assistant manager, which came with a small raise. It still wasn't much. But it was more. And more was progress. Around this time, I started taking online classes. Business management. Marketing. Skills that would help me move beyond retail. Skills that would open doors. I'd work my shift, come home, eat something quick, then study until midnight. On weekends, I'd do homework and job applications. I was still exhausted. Still stretched thin. But now it felt purposeful. Like I was building toward something instead of just treading water. One evening, about 18 months after losing my original apartment, I got a call from a marketing firm. They'd seen my resume online and wanted to interview me for a coordinator position. I almost dropped my phone. A real job. A salaried position. Benefits. Paid time off. The kind of job I hadn't thought I'd ever get again. The interview was terrifying. I showed up in my best outfit, a blazer and pants I'd bought from Goodwill and had tailored to fit properly. I shook hands. Made eye contact. Answered questions. Tried to project confidence I didn't fully feel. A week later, they offered me the job. I accepted immediately, then sat in my car in the parking lot and sobbed. Great, ugly, relieved sobs. Because I'd done it. I'd actually done it. I'd climbed out of the hole. I'd rebuilt my life from 3 trash bags to a salaried position with benefits. And I'd done it without him. The new job changed everything. For the first time in years, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck. I could afford groceries without calculating every penny. I could save money more aggressively. I paid off my credit card debt. Built up an emergency fund. Started contributing to a 401k. My apartment didn't feel so shabby anymore. I bought nicer furniture. Real art for the walls. Plants that weren't half dead from the dollar store. I started doing things for myself again. Going to movies. Getting coffee at actual coffee shops instead of making instant at home. Taking a pottery class on weekends just because it sounded fun. I was healing. Slowly. But healing. 2 years after losing my apartment, I started thinking about buying a house. It seemed impossible at first. I was only 30 years old. Most people my age were drowning in debt and couldn't imagine homeownership. But I'd been saving aggressively. Living below my means. I had good credit, I'd spent years rebuilding it. I had a stable job. A down payment saved up. I talked to a financial advisor. Then a mortgage broker. They ran the numbers and told me I could afford a modest starter home. A starter home. My own house. Not renting. Not owing rent to a landlord. But actually owning something. Having equity. Building wealth. The idea terrified and excited me in equal measure. I started looking at listings online. Small 2-bedroom houses in decent neighborhoods. Nothing fancy. Just something solid. Something mine. And then one Saturday afternoon, scrolling through listings, I saw it. A small 2-bedroom house. Recently renovated. Cute front porch. Fenced backyard with a big oak tree. Move-in ready. Good neighborhood. And the address made my heart stop. It was on Maple Street. My father's street. Not just his street, it was 412 Maple Street. My father lived at 410 Maple Street. This house was right next door to his. I stared at that listing for 20 minutes straight. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. The house next door to my father. The one that had been owned by an elderly couple, the Johnsons, who'd recently moved to assisted living. It was in my price range. Not easily, but it was possible. If I stretched my budget slightly, if I was careful, I could afford it. I could buy the house next door to the man who'd closed his door on me. Part of me thought it was a terrible idea. Too close. Too much potential for conflict. Why would I want to live next to someone who'd hurt me so badly? But another part of me, the part that had worked 70-hour weeks, the part that had saved every penny, the part that had rebuilt her life from nothing, thought it was perfect. Not as revenge. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt him or make him suffer. I just wanted him to see. To really see. To understand with his own eyes that the daughter he'd abandoned hadn't just survived, she'd thrived. I wanted him to watch me pull into my driveway every day. To see me water my lawn. To know that I'd made it without him. I called the realtor the next day. The process of buying a house is long and complicated. There's inspections and appraisals and mountains of paperwork. There's negotiations and contingencies and waiting. So much waiting. But I was approved for the mortgage. My credit was good. My income was stable. My down payment was solid. The house inspection came back clean. The appraisal came in at value. Everything lined up like dominoes falling in the right direction. 3 months after I first saw the listing, I sat in a title company office and signed my name about 100 times. The realtor handed me a set of keys. The house was mine. I sat in my car in that parking lot, holding those keys, and I couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop feeling this overwhelming sense of accomplishment. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. 3 years ago, I'd been on a curb with trash bags. And now I owned a house. I didn't tell my father. I didn't tell anyone except Maya, who screamed so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. Esther, you bought a house. I'm so proud of you. Wait, did you say next door to your dad? Yeah. There was a long pause. Then, oh my God. This is going to be so dramatic. I love everything about this. It's not about drama, I said, though part of me knew that wasn't entirely true. It's about closure, I think. It's about showing him, and myself, that I made it. Whatever it's about, I'm so here for it. When do you move in? 2 weeks. The night before moving day, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my apartment bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what would happen when he saw me. Would he be angry? Embarrassed? Shocked? Would he try to talk to me? Would he ignore me? Would he pretend everything was fine? I didn't know. And the not knowing made my stomach twist with anxiety. But underneath the anxiety was something else. Something quieter but stronger. Pride. I was proud of myself. Proud of what I'd survived. Proud of what I'd built. Proud that I'd taken the worst moment of my life and turned it into the foundation of something beautiful. And that pride, that deep, unshakable pride was mine. Forever. No matter what happened next. Moving day was a sunny Saturday in June. 3 years and 9 months after that phone call. 3 years and 9 months after he told me to figure it out myself. I'd hired a small moving truck and a couple of movers to help with the heavy furniture. Maya came, along with a few co-workers from the marketing firm. We loaded everything up, my furniture, my boxes, my plants, all the pieces of my life. When we pulled up to 412 Maple Street, I saw my father's car in his driveway. He was home. The moving truck was loud. Impossible to miss. As we started unloading, I kept glancing at his house, waiting. About 20 minutes in, his front door opened. He stepped out onto his porch, probably to see what all the noise was about. And he froze. Our eyes met across the narrow strip of lawn between our houses. Maybe 20 feet separated us. Might as well have been 20 miles. I could see the confusion on his face. The shock. The slow, dawning realization of what was happening. His daughter, the one he'd abandoned, the one he'd told to figure it out herself, the one he'd closed his door on, was moving into the house next door. Not as a desperate woman with trash bags. Not as someone broken and begging for help, but as a homeowner. As someone who'd figured it out. As someone who'd made it without him. I held his gaze for a long moment. I didn't smile cruelly. I didn't gloat. I just looked at him with calm, quiet certainty. Then I turned back to the truck and grabbed another box. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched him. He stood on his porch for several minutes, just staring. Processing. Trying to understand. Maya whispered, "Is that him?" "Yeah." "Oh wow. He looks like someone just slapped him with reality. This is better than I imagined." I couldn't help but smile a little. We kept unloading. The movers brought in my couch, my bed frame, my kitchen table. Box after box after box. All the proof of my rebuilt life, carried through the front door of my house. My house. Those two words still felt surreal. After about 40 minutes, my father finally moved. He walked down his porch steps, slowly, like he was approaching something dangerous. He crossed his lawn and stopped at the property line between our yards. "Esther." I turned to face him, a box labeled kitchen in my arms. "Hi, Dad. You bought this house?" "I did." "When?" "I closed 3 months ago. I've been wrapping things up at my apartment." He looked at the house. At the moving truck. At the furniture being carried inside. At Maya, who was watching him with barely concealed judgment. At me. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question almost made me laugh. Why didn't I tell him? Why would I? Why would I tell you? I said, my voice even. Not angry. Just matter of fact. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer for that. "You're really living here? Next door?" That's generally what happens when you buy a house. You live in it. My tone wasn't mean. It wasn't bitter. It was just neutral. Like I was explaining something obvious to a stranger. He rubbed the back of his neck. That gesture I knew so well. The one he did when he was uncomfortable. When he didn't know what to say. "Esther, this is unexpected." "Life is full of surprises," I said. Then I walked past him into my house. Over the next few days, I settled in. I unpacked boxes. Arranged furniture. Hung pictures on walls that were mine to put holes in. Organized my kitchen exactly how I wanted it. Planted flowers in the front garden bed. Every task felt meaningful. Every small choice, where to put the couch, what color curtains to buy, which corner was best for my reading chair, felt like reclaiming something that had been taken from me. Control. Agency. The right to make my own space. Living next door to my father was surreal. I'd see him sometimes, getting his mail or mowing his lawn or leaving for wherever he went. We'd make eye contact. He'd nod. I'd nod back. That was it. No conversations. No explanations. No confrontations. Just two neighbors who happened to share DNA. About 2 weeks after I moved in, on a Sunday evening, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw my father standing on my porch, holding something. I considered not answering. Part of me wanted to avoid whatever conversation was about to happen. But another part of me, the part that had worked so hard to get here, wasn't afraid anymore. I opened the door. "Dad." "Esther. Hi. I brought you these." He held out a basket. Inside were tomatoes from his garden, still warm from the sun. Housewarming gift. I grew too many this year. I took the basket. "Thank you." An awkward silence filled the space between us. "Listen," he said, looking down at his shoes. "Do you have a few minutes? I'd like to talk to you about something." I considered saying no. But what was the point? We were neighbors now. We couldn't avoid each other forever. "Okay. Come in." He stepped inside and looked around. At my furniture. At my decorations. At my life made visible in this space. "Nice place," he said. "You've done well with it. It looks good." "Thank you." We stood there in my living room. This room that was mine. This house that I'd bought. This life that I'd built without him. He cleared his throat. "Esther, I wanted to talk to you about when you called me. Almost 4 years ago now." My stomach tightened. Here it was. The conversation I'd been both dreading and needing. Okay. I was harsh. I know that. I've been thinking about it a lot these past few weeks, seeing you next door. And I realize I handled that completely wrong. I waited. Didn't make it easy for him. Let him struggle with his words the way I'd struggled with my life. I thought I was teaching you a lesson, he continued. About responsibility. About independence. About standing on your own 2 feet. But I see now that I wasn't teaching you anything. I was punishing you. For what? I asked quietly. For reminding me of my own failures, he said, his voice cracking slightly. For making me see myself in you. I struggled too, you know. When I was younger. Lost jobs. Made bad choices. Your mother had to bail me out more than once. And when you called me, desperate and scared, I saw myself. And I hated it. So instead of helping you, I rejected you. Because it was easier than facing my own past. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before, shame. I'm sorry, Esther. I'm so sorry. You needed me and I wasn't there. And that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life. The apology hung in the air between us. The words I'd wanted to hear for almost 4 years. But hearing them now, standing in my own house, on my own foundation, they didn't have the power I'd thought they would. They didn't heal everything. They didn't erase the pain. Thank you for saying that, I said carefully. I appreciate the apology. I'm proud of you, you know, he added quickly. For this. For the house. For turning everything around. And there it was. The thing that still bothered me. The thing I needed to say. Dad, I didn't turn anything around. I never went in the wrong direction. He looked confused. What do you mean? I mean that losing my job and my apartment wasn't a moral failing. It wasn't proof that I was irresponsible or lazy or any of the things you said. It was life. Bad luck. Circumstances. And I needed help. That's all. Just help. I know, but... And you're proud of me now because I have a house. Because I have a good job. Because I have something to show for my struggles. But Dad, what about when I didn't? What about when I was sleeping on a couch? When I was working 2 minimum wage jobs? That's all I could afford? Was I worth being proud of then? He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Because I was doing the same thing then that I'm doing now, I continued, my voice steady. I was surviving. I was fighting. I was refusing to give up. The only difference is that now my struggle has a happy ending that's visible to you. But the work? The determination? The strength? That was there all along. You just couldn't see it. You're right, he whispered. You're absolutely right. I needed you to see me when I was at my lowest. Not when I was at my highest. That's when people need to be seen. When they're drowning, not when they've already swum to shore. He nodded, tears forming in his eyes. I failed you. Completely failed you. And I don't know how to make that right. You can't, I said simply. You can't go back and open your door when I needed you to. You can't go back and be the father I needed in that moment. What's done is done. So where does that leave us? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know, I admitted. I'm not saying I'll never forgive you. But forgiveness isn't something you can demand or expect. It's something that happens slowly over time, if it happens at all. And right now, I'm still processing everything. Still healing from it. I understand. But we're neighbors now, I continued. And I don't want animosity or awkwardness. So maybe we start there. As neighbors. And we see where it goes. He nodded slowly. I can do that. Thank you for even giving me that much. After he left, I sat on my couch for a long time, processing what had just happened. He'd apologized. He'd admitted he was wrong. He'd shown more emotional vulnerability than I'd ever seen from him. But it didn't change what had happened. It didn't erase those nights of crying myself to sleep. It didn't undo the pain of his rejection. What it did do was close a chapter. It gave me something I needed, acknowledgement. He saw what he'd done. He understood how he'd hurt me. And he was genuinely sorry. That was enough. Not to fix everything, but enough to let me start moving forward without carrying quite so much anger. Over the following months, my father and I developed a cautious relationship. We weren't close. We probably never would be the way we'd been when I was 7 and he called me princess. But we were civil. Friendly, even in a distant, careful way. He'd bring over vegetables from his garden sometimes. I'd bring him extra cookies when I baked. We'd wave when we saw each other. Chat about the weather or neighborhood news. Help each other with small things. When my lawnmower broke, he came over and fixed it without me asking. When he needed someone to take him to get his car from the shop, I drove him. Small gestures. Small bridges. Building something new from the rubble of what had been broken. 6 months after I moved in, my brother Marcus came to visit my father. I saw his car pull up, saw him get out with his wife and kids. A few minutes later, there was a knock on my door. It was Marcus. "Hey, Esther. Dad said you were living here now. Can I come in?" "Sure." He stepped inside and looked around, similar to how my father had. Taking inventory. Processing. "This is really nice," he said. "I heard you bought it. Congratulations." "Thanks. Listen, I wanted to apologize. Dad told me about what happened when you lost your apartment and called him. I didn't know about any of that until recently." "It's fine, Marcus. That was between me and Dad. But if I'd known you needed help, would you have helped me?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Would you have let me stay with you?" He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I had my answer. "It's okay," I said. "I figured it out on my own. And honestly, I'm glad I did, because now I know exactly what I'm capable of." He nodded slowly. "You always were the tough one, even when we were kids. Dad was harder on you than he was on me or Lisa. I never understood why." "Because I questioned things," I said. "I didn't just follow the path he laid out. And that scared him. Or threatened him. Or both." "Probably both," Marcus agreed. "But look at you now. Homeowner. Good career. You did all this yourself. That's impressive, Esther. Really impressive." It was nice to hear, but it also felt hollow. Because where were these people when I was struggling? Where was this support when I actually needed it? Still, I accepted the compliment with grace. "Thank you. I appreciate that." After he left, I thought about family. About what it means. About what it's supposed to mean versus what it actually is. I'd spent so much of my life trying to fit into a family that didn't have space for who I actually was. Trying to earn love that should have been freely given. Trying to prove I was worthy of basic support and compassion. But I'd built my own family along the way. Maya, who'd opened her home when my father wouldn't. My co-workers who'd helped me move. The financial advisor who'd believed in me when I applied for a mortgage. The realtor who'd fought for me during negotiations. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up. Who see you. Who help you when you're drowning instead of lecturing you about swimming. A year after moving into my house, I got a promotion at work. Senior Marketing Coordinator. It came with a significant raise and more responsibility. I was building something. Not just a career, but a life. A real, stable, beautiful life. I joined a book club. Started running in the mornings. Adopted a rescue dog named Charlie. Dated a little, though nothing serious yet. Took pottery classes. Traveled to places I'd always wanted to see. I was happy. Not the fragile, temporary kind of happy that comes from external circumstances, but the deep-rooted kind that comes from knowing yourself. From being proud of who you are and what you've survived. One evening, about 18 months after moving in, I was sitting on my front porch with Charlie, watching the sunset, when my father came out of his house. He walked over with 2 beers. "Mind if I join you?" "Sure." He handed me a beer and sat in the chair next to mine. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn pink and orange and purple. "I tell people about you now," he said eventually. "About your house. About your career. About how you built yourself back up from nothing." "Do you?" "Yeah. I'm proud of you, Esther. I know I didn't show it when it mattered, but I am now. I took a sip of beer. Thank you for saying that. Do you ever think about forgiving me? Really forgiving me? I considered the question. Really considered it. I think I already have, I said slowly. Not all at once. Not in some big dramatic moment. But gradually, over time. Forgiveness isn't a destination. It's a process. And I'm in that process. What made you able to forgive? Living here, probably. Seeing you regularly. Having small, normal interactions. It's hard to hold on to anger when you're sharing garden vegetables and fixing each other's stuff. He smiled. I suppose that's true. And also, I continued, I realized that holding on to anger was only hurting me. It wasn't punishing you or teaching you a lesson. It was just poisoning my own happiness. So I let it go. Not for you. For me. That's very mature of you. I had to grow up fast, I said. Hitting rock bottom will do that. We sat in silence for another moment. You know what I learned from all this? I said. What? That I didn't need you to make it. I wanted you to be there. I wished you had been. But I didn't need you. I had myself. And that was enough. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Pride mixed with regret mixed with something else. Maybe understanding. That's the lesson you were trying to teach me, right? I continued. That I needed to stand on my own 2 feet? Well, I learned it. Just not the way you intended. I'm sorry it had to be that hard, he said quietly. Me too. But I survived it. And I'm stronger because of it. Even if I wish I'd never had to be that strong. 2 years after moving into my house, something unexpected happened. Maya got engaged. She asked me to be her maid of honor. The wedding was beautiful, small and intimate, just close friends and family. My father came as my +1. It felt strange, walking into that wedding with him. But also right, somehow. Like we were building something new. Something honest. During the reception, he pulled me aside. Thank you for inviting me, he said. I know we're still figuring things out. But this means a lot. You're my father, I said simply. And Maya means the world to me. It felt right to have both of you there. She's a good friend. She was there for you when I wasn't. She was. I'm glad you had her. Even if I wish you'd had me too. I squeezed his hand. We can't change the past. But we can be better in the present. You're wiser than I ever was, he said. I had good teachers. Just not always the ones I expected. Let me tell you what I learned from all of this. From losing everything. From being rejected by my own father. From rebuilding my life from 3 trash bags to a house. I learned that you are stronger than you think you are. That you can survive things you never imagined surviving. That rock bottom isn't the end, it's just the foundation you build on. I learned that other people's opinions of you, even people who should love you unconditionally, say more about them than they say about you. Their limitations, their fears, their inability to show up when it matters. I learned that family isn't always the people you're related to. Sometimes it's the people who choose you. Who show up. Who open their door when others close theirs. I learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about releasing yourself from the weight of anger. It's about choosing peace over bitterness. It's about healing yourself, not pardoning them. I learned that success isn't measured by external markers like houses and jobs and money. It's measured by internal growth. By resilience. By the ability to keep getting up every time life knocks you down. And most importantly, I learned that the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. Not because other people don't matter. But because at the end of the day, you have to be your own hero. You have to save yourself. Living next door to my father has been strange and healing and complicated all at once. We're not close the way we were when I was 7. We probably never will be. Too much has happened. Too much trust was broken. But we're something. Neighbors. Friendly acquaintances who share DNA. 2 people learning how to be in each other's lives without the weight of old expectations. Sometimes he brings over tomatoes. Sometimes I bring over cookies. Sometimes we sit on our porches and wave at each other and go about our separate lives. And that's enough. It has to be enough. Because you can't force relationships to be something they're not. You can't make people into who you wish they were. All you can do is accept what is and decide if it's something you want in your life. 3 years after moving into my house, 7 years after that phone call, I was sitting on my porch one evening when a young woman walked by. She looked lost, tired, defeated. She reminded me of myself all those years ago. And before I could stop myself, I called out, "Are you okay?" She stopped and looked at me, really looked at me. And I saw it, that same desperation I'd felt. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice cracked. "You don't look fine. No judgment. I've been not fine before. Do you need help?" She hesitated. "Then, I lost my apartment. I don't have anywhere to go. I've been walking around all day trying to figure out what to do." My heart broke. Because I knew that feeling. I knew it intimately. "Come here," I said. "Sit down. Let me get you some water." She sat on my porch steps while I got her a bottle of water and some crackers. She drank and ate like she hadn't done either in a while. "What's your name?" I asked. "Jasmine." "Jasmine, I'm Esther. And I want you to know that I've been exactly where you are. 7 years ago, I was sitting on a curb with trash bags, wondering how I'd ended up there. And now I'm sitting on my own porch, in my own house, living my own life." She looked at me with eyes full of hope and disbelief. "How?" "One day at a time. One choice at a time. One small victory at a time. It wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I survived it. And you will too. I don't know if I can." "You can. And you will. Because you're stronger than you think you are. You just haven't had the chance to prove it yet." I gave her Maya's phone number. Told her Maya had connections to social services and might be able to help her find resources. I gave her $50 from my wallet. Told her to use it for food or a place to sleep for the night. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." "Because someone helped me once. And because I remember what it feels like to be desperate and alone and convinced that you'll never be okay again. I want you to know you will be okay. Maybe not today or tomorrow. But eventually." She left with tears in her eyes and a little bit of hope. And I sat on my porch, feeling grateful for everything I'd survived. Everything I'd become. Everything I'd learned. That night, my father saw the whole interaction from his window. He came over afterward. "That was kind of you," he said. "Helping that girl. Someone helped me once. I'm just passing it forward." He nodded. "You're a better person than I am. You know that." "I don't know about that. We're all just doing our best." "No," he said firmly. "You are. You took something terrible and turned it into compassion. I took something terrible and turned it into bitterness. You're the better person, Esther. By far." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said, "Thank you." If you're listening to this story right now, and you're where I was 7 years ago, desperate, alone, convinced you'll never recover, I need you to hear me. You will survive this. You will rise from this. You will become someone you can't even imagine right now. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. It won't be painless. But it will be worth it. Because on the other side of this struggle is a version of you who's stronger, wiser, more resilient than you've ever been. A version who knows her worth. Who knows her strength. Who knows she can survive anything. And that version of you? She's already inside you. Waiting. Ready to emerge. You just have to give her the chance. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One small victory at a time. You can do this. I believe in you. Even if no one else does right now, I do. Because I did it. And if I could do it, you can too. My father refused to help me when I lost my apartment. His reaction when I bought the house next door said everything. Not with words. Not with apologies or explanations. But with his face. With his stunned silence. With his slow understanding that the daughter he'd underestimated had become the neighbor he couldn't ignore. I didn't buy that house to punish him. I didn't buy it to prove him wrong. I didn't buy it for revenge or validation or to make him feel small. I bought it to prove something to myself. That I could take the worst rejection of my life and turn it into the greatest accomplishment. That I could stand on ground I owned and know that no one, could take it from me. That I could look at the man who closed his door on me and feel nothing but peace. Because his rejection didn't define me. My response to it did. And I chose to respond with strength. With determination. With a stubborn refusal to let his no become my future. Every morning, I wake up in my own bed. In my own room. In my own house. On my own land. And I'm reminded that I am more than anyone's rejection. I am more than anyone's disappointment. I am more than anyone's doubt. I am Esther. I am 32 years old. And I am home. Not because someone gave it to me. Not because someone saved me. Not because someone believed in me. But because I built it myself. Brick by brick. Dollar by dollar. Choice by choice. I saved myself. And that's a kind of strength no one can ever take away. He once closed his door when I had nowhere to go. So I bought the house next to his. Not out of spite. Not out of anger. Not out of revenge. But as proof. Proof that I no longer needed his permission to stand. Proof that I no longer needed his approval to exist. Proof that I no longer needed him to believe in me. Because I'd finally learned to believe in myself. And that belief? That's the foundation of everything. That belief is what carried me from that curb to this porch. That belief is what turned trash bags into moving boxes. That belief is what transformed rejection into resilience. If I could go back and talk to the Esther sitting on that curb with 3 trash bags, I'd tell her this. I know it hurts. I know it feels like the end of everything. I know you want to give up. But don't. Because 4 years from now, you're going to be sitting on your own porch, in your own house, living your own beautiful life. You're going to have a career you're proud of. Friends who love you. A dog who thinks you're the best thing in the world. And most importantly, you're going to have yourself. Fully. Completely. Unapologetically. You're going to know your worth. You're going to know your strength. You're going to know that you don't need anyone's permission to be whole. So hold on. Just a little longer. Better days are coming. And you're going to be the one who brings them. My name is Esther. I'm 32 years old. And I bought the house next door to my father. Not to hurt him. Not to punish him. Not to prove anything to him. But to remind myself, every single day, that I survived what should have broken me. That I turned my worst moment into my greatest strength. That I am the hero of my own story. And that no one, not even the people who should have loved me most, can take that away from me. He closed his door when I needed him most. So I built my own. And now, every time I walk through it, I'm reminded. I don't need anyone to open doors for me. I know how to build them myself. The end. For everyone who's ever been told to figure it out yourself, by someone who should have helped. You will figure it out. And when you do, it will be sweeter than you ever imagined. Because you'll know, truly know, that you saved yourself. And that's the most powerful thing in the world.